it's kind of the first thing that we're looking at when we're doing an acquisition. Are there people at the target company that could potentially be franchisees?
We don't need to have this huge corporate administrative burden that a lot of companies are cursed with. You have the model, all that you have to do is execute it. To me, this was the perfect marriage.
Welcome back to Talent Hunters, where we explore insights and trends shaping the global recruiting and staffing industry. Want to build talented teams that drive your company toward big goals and big growth? Then this podcast is for you. And now, let's join the conversation with today's episode of Talent Hunters, brought to you by HireQuest. Connect with us at HireQuest.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Vince Holt, the host of Talent Hunters. And today, I am excited to venture into a part of our world that I know nothing about. Today, we have David Hartley, the VP of Corporate Development within HireQuest, and Kevin Simmerod, franchise owner of HireQuest Direct and Snelling, located in several states across our country. Welcome, gentlemen.
Morning. Thank you for having us.
Looking so forward to this. David, you head up corporate development and mergers and acquisitions. And I'm just dying to understand, with your background, how you got into mergers and acquisitions.
Sure. So I have been doing mergers and acquisitions either as, an investment banker, advising small businesses and large businesses on capital raises, M&A, sort of everything that has to do with sort of the different strategic direction of the business, as well as I also had a prior corporate development role early in my career where I did acquisitions, and then we also, at that point in time, we were a private company that went public. So I had a lot of experience there. Really enjoyed working with different companies. Really enjoyed, learning everything about it. Every transaction is different, and so ultimately, there's always new things that you're learning every time you do it. But at the same time, you also get better at all the stuff that you do now. So it's just a lot of fun. There's always the sort of the deal aspect of it is exciting. And frankly, a lot of the time you're helping people and you're working with people at a very sort of crucial time in their life where they're either selling a business or they're buying a business. And that's a big sort of milestone for a lot of people. And so that's also very rewarding.
Oh, wonderful. Now, Kevin, give us a brief background that you've been involved in, because you've actually been involved in staffing for quite some time, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been in staffing now since '89, so 35 years here, and so I got into it at ground up. Started with one branch, ended up meeting a guy. I'd moved down to the Twin Cities after college. I was a small town North Dakota kid, and moved down to the Twin Cities after college. Met a guy, kind of happenstance via my dad, and he'd opened up this odd business that nobody'd really heard of at that point in time before, and so he's I talked to him one night, and he says, "Oh, you got to come check this out," and so I go in there the next morning. It was the strangest thing I'd ever seen. And long story short, him and I kind of clicked, and he said, I could really use some help. And a week later, 2 weeks later, whatever it was, I was an employee, and it kind of started out that way. And then it over time, he approached me and he says, I kind of seems you like this business a little bit more than I do. I'm going to move back to North Dakota and get back to my roots and back to the business that I like. Would you like to stay? I hadn't even thought about that, but sure. And so one branch turned to 2 to 3 to 5 to at which point we had 16 that we sold into Command Center to start basically going down that path of morphing that into a public entity. And then I went to work for a command center in the public side of things. And so that was completely different. And then 13 years or so later, HireQuest appears, and here we are. So kind of went back to basics.
So I'm going to take a complete right-hand turn. What part of North Dakota?
Well, so I have lived almost everywhere in North Dakota. Originally born on a farm out north of Dickinson, out in the middle of, Badlands. And for the most part, grew up in Devil's Lake, went to college in Grand Forks, and moved to the Twin Cities, met a girl from here. She didn't want to leave, so here we are.
So the only reason I ask is I spent 7 years in Grand Forks, North Dakota, managing a retail home center out there. And there's no better class of people than the Midwest. And so I applaud you on that. I really do. Sorry about that divergent here. David, tell us what this command center is all about, please.
So the command center transaction actually is kind of interesting because that's how I was introduced to HireQuest. I was working as an investment banker at the time, and I was advising command center on strategic options and looking at selling the company either to another public company or to a private company or something else. And HireQuest kind of came around, and they had an interesting model, and it was something where I don't think any of us had really thought about that type of a structure before. And it was, really sort of the perfect match for command center, where just a lot of the strengths, and then also some of the, the struggles that you have when you're managing, 60 plus offices around the country. It's very difficult. And so HireQuest came in, and with the franchise model, they actually simplified things a lot, and then gave people who, like Kevin, who had previous experience, but then also other branch managers and some salespeople who were then able to become business owners sort of through that transaction by sort of taking over either branches that they were already doing or working closely with. And it was, it's been almost 5 years now, a little over 5 years now since then. And it's been, great for everybody.
So for clarification, Kevin, you worked for Command Center, and then you were part of the acquisition. Is that correct?
Yeah. So how I came into Command Center is we sold, those original branches that we built from the ground up. We sold those into Command Center when Command Center was originally a franchise company, and it wasn't a franchise company very long. It became a public company fairly quickly. So at that point that it became a public company, that's when I went to work for them.
So then when Command Center merged with HQ, what was your role at the time of the merge?
At that point, I was in a regional role, working more, overseeing a lot of different branches around the country, and working, coaching, developing, mentoring those managers to grow those branches. So a lot of travel.
Shortly thereafter, you decided to, and I'm not sure how it happened, you purchased or started up some franchises with Snelling and with HQ.
Yeah. So at that point, I don't know what the branch count was. David probably know that better than I, but at the point that was announced, I worked with Rick and obviously David and everyone else to buy a good chunk of those Command Center branches. And so we worked out a deal to make that a reality, and here we are today. So it's it was taking a pretty large swath of that group of branches that were, with that commenced our acquisition, and basically franchising those under the HireQuest umbrella. And then, Snelling didn't enter the equation until a little bit after that, when that acquisition happened. And at that point, we rebranded one branch. And then since then, we purchased another 4 Snelling branches on top of that around the country.
And that's really one of the sort of key tenets of how we look at transactions, because especially in this type of a people-facing business, a services business, the people who are at the current company that we're looking to acquire, they're the ones with the day-to-day relationships with the temporary employees. They're the ones with the relationships with the clients, and it makes it much easier and much smoother long term to sort of retain those people and give them an opportunity to become a business owner, because they've already been working with everybody previously, and it gives them an opportunity that they might not have had otherwise, and so it really does. It's kind of the first thing that we're looking at when we're doing an acquisition is, are there people at the target company that could potentially be franchisees? Would they be able to do that? And it has nothing to do with how much money they have in their bank account. It's really, what are they doing today? How can we support that person who's already been managing this business, already been doing, a vast majority of the things that we would ultimately, that they would ultimately be doing as a franchisee? What are they, can those people step in and become owners?
Is there any kind of a criteria, David, that when you evaluate this, I love the fact that you're not looking at their bank accounts, you're looking at the people themselves and their experience. Is there any kind of a cursory agenda that you're looking at? Because when you acquire an organization or merge with an organization, there's a lot of leaders in there.
Yeah, and it depends, because we've done everything from a small single branch with just $1 million, $2 million in sales, where it's a small family-run business, and maybe you have a branch manager, you have an owner, a branch manager, maybe a salesperson or two, and then 1 or 2 other people working in the office helping with recruitment and just working with the temporary employees. So there's not necessarily a specific formula that we look at. I mean, we have our specific brands under HireQuest. We've got HireQuest Direct, which is our daily pay, sort of blue collar labor type of an offering, and we've got Snelling, which is our traditional light industrial commercial staffing brand, and then we've got MRI Network, which encompasses sort of the higher end of the market with executive recruiting and more white collar consulting type offerings. And so we really look at things that fit within those, as well as other things that fit within, just the general staffing umbrella too. So I probably look at over 100 companies a year that might be a good fit for us. And really, at the end of the day, for me, I know that we're not going to be the best partner for everybody out there. And some of that might be, just related to our structure, our unique structure. Other things just might be that there's something that doesn't work in the deal. There's something that they're doing that maybe we're not comfortable doing. They've been successful at it for a long time. But from our perspective, we have a lot of other branches and a lot of other franchisees that we're trying to protect. And so we So we might not go down that route with them. But ultimately, I want whatever transactions that we're doing to be sort of a great outcome for the person that we're buying the business from. And a lot of the time, frankly, the fact that we're not coming in like some of our competitors and ultimately consolidating our branches, we already have existing branches and we're just going to consolidate it. And we're just, we already have the infrastructure. We don't need anything that you already have. And the fact that we give a potential path to ownership for those, or some of the employees of that business owner, because a lot of the time that person has been working closely with these people. In some cases, these people have been running the business really day to day for many years, and providing that owner with income and stuff like that. And so they're very happy to partner with us and have that opportunity for their employees, where it's not just a job, but it's really it's a big sort of life step for them.
So Kevin, you come along, you're happy doing what you're doing, and then you jump off the diving board into the deep end.
Pretty much.
What motivated you? I mean, I've heard David tell us what they look for. What excited you about jumping into the deep end like that?
Frankly, it was getting, out of the public setting and back into private ownership. That was, what I always enjoyed. It was, in retrospect, those were, just building it, growing it, developing people, all that kind of stuff. That's great. But I love the autonomy. I love the independent ownership. This is the fourth time in my career, so the fourth brand that I have franchised under. So it wasn't a first go around. I was pretty used to the how things operate, how things should work, all of that. The big surprise for me all came in good ways, and that was the level of support, the level of just engagement in where you wanted the franchise company to be in your business versus where you didn't. It was such a positive thing, and always has been. It's a very, David had kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, and I think we all kind of underplay it, but it's a unique structure. It is a unique organization. It is unlike anything else that is out there, and I think for the right franchisees, it's for their betterment, you are allowed to, you are tasked with growing that business in whichever way that you see fit, and whatever assistance that you need that from a corporate support perspective, it's there.
I got 40 years with the MRI brand, and coming into this organization, I mean, we stumbled a lot in our leadership programs, in acquisitions and so forth in the past. And when HQ acquired us, it excited me from the standpoint of suddenly we're not just a perm placement organization. Suddenly we're part of a full meal deal all across the country, all around the world, from the standpoint of whether it's, to your point, David, blue collar work, temporary work, whatever it is. We now have the capability of offering everything to anybody. What's the future hold? David, from the acquisition or the merger part of it, what's the future hold moving forward for your discipline?
So I think we still have a lot of room to grow in the areas that we are today. So, we have a lot of room to grow the HireQuest Direct side. We have a lot of room to grow the Snelling side, and then also there's other pieces of the staffing business where we don't really have a large, we don't have a large presence as we said. So we started we started from scratch a skilled trades division called Trade Core. About a year ago, I think we launched it. And so there are a lot of opportunities there. There's opportunities in healthcare, staffing, IT staffing, some other areas within staffing. And then ultimately, long term for us as a franchisor, I mean, a lot of what we do is really helping sort of B2B services and really labor heavy B2B services businesses thrive. And so, that moves out into things like security guards. It moves into janitorial, commercial landscaping. There are a bunch of other things where a lot of the strengths and a lot of the sort of the services and the support that we provide for our existing franchisees can be applicable. And so I think that always is part of it. And then also for even for our existing franchisees, I mean, I talk to people on a regular basis where either they're thinking about looking at a new geography and maybe making an acquisition as a way to enter that geography. That might be an attractive option compared to sending somebody out there and trying to start it from scratch. But also, I talk to people where maybe they have somebody in their market who has been a competitor for a long time that's either looking to retire or something else, and they're interested in doing a transaction for that. And we, as an organization, we want to support the growth of our franchisees, sort of in any way possible, including acquisitions. And so, I will work closely with those people and really sort of take the lead to the extent that they want me to get a transaction like that completed. And we also, as a franchisor, I think we're definitely unique in this, and as much as we, we'll provide them money, either in the form of, sort of a loan, or just if they're bringing some cash to the table, we'll match that cash, so effectively lowering the price for them, because ultimately we want them to be successful long term, because that's kind of how we're all successful. Because without the franchisees and without their success, there isn't really a reason for HireQuest to be here. So trying to figure out what are the different ways, both on the operational side and support side, but then also sort of in what are other avenues for growth that we can help them with, and M&A plays a big part in that.
I love how you guys are canvassing this whole solution, because if we identify a problem and there's a need out there, you guys are chasing that need to be able to provide the solutions. Kevin, I think you've been owner now for a little over 5 years. Is that correct? Did I catch that right?
Correct.
In short, yeah, you became, again, franchise owner, but what did the marriage bring to you to help you grow your business?
Well, several things, obviously from the jump, the team really made it simple. There was some internal financing there. I brought some external financing to the table. We made the deal work. All of that is all fine and good. But longer term, it's, there are a lot of, like I said before, the level of corporate support that is provided, anything from national accounts to risk management to, whatever it takes to run that business. A lot of that support is available at the corporate level, at the franchise level. So our ability to really run these operations, focusing on the customers and the employees, in a day-to-day perspective is there. And so we don't need to have this huge, corporate administrative burden, that, a lot of companies are cursed with. You know, unless that's something that a franchisee wants, it's not required. You can run it fairly lean. And so your ability to, you know, turn good returns is elevated by that. So that's, you know, that's one of the things. And then just, you know, thinking longer term, you know, my deal was probably a little bit different in that, you know, at that point in time, I was in my mid-50s already. And so, you know, I had to structure a deal with almost, you know, an end game in mind. And so that was an opportunity to loop in a lot of people that, you know, had been at my right hand for a long, long time. And so every one of those that is that right hand in a local market, you know, that was an opportunity for me to return, you know, to where I had started, and I ended up getting that sweat equity piece, you know, 35 years ago, to do the same for somebody else. And so that opportunity was created. It was held, you know, was facilitated. So now I have operating, you know, partners in every single one of those markets, and that is the next generation of, you know, this business after long after I'm gone.
So you represent a part of the business that I've never been involved in, but obviously being with MRI, the one Achilles heel in acquisitions and mergers that I've experienced is the continuity of training. Have you guys brought a great solution to when you acquire companies or merge with other companies? How do you emphasize the continuity of training from the way that it was to the way that it's going to be or should be? Either one of you.
I mean, I think that there's, at least from a corporate franchisor perspective, it's our franchisees. If you go across office to office, you know, different franchisees have different strengths. They have different emphasis that they, you know, ultimately in how they run their business. And I think that, you know, we try to give them a framework and sort of guidelines to follow. But it really is, you know, where are they strong? Are they really strong salespeople? Well, we have operational, you know, we have operational know-how and other things like that we can help them with so that they can shore up sort of their business that way. Are they really strong operationally and maybe, you know, sales isn't really what comes naturally to them? Well, then we have our national accounts program. We've got a bunch of other things that can help them so that they can run the business sort of in the best way possible for them, because ultimately everybody has, you know, the different strengths and weaknesses. They have different end goals. Some people are looking to grow their business in the future. And some people might be at a point in time where they say, look, this is great. I like kind of the work-life balance I have right now. I like the, you know, the people. I like what I'm doing. And I'm not as interested in, you know, going out there and trying to grow this more than what I have today. And that's okay too. So, you know, really it comes down to providing the tools that are necessary to people, you know, if they want them. And again, because a lot of the people that ultimately come into our system are people who have existing operating experience. It's a little different than, you know, a bunch of the other franchise opportunities out there, where many of the people are coming in from, you know, completely different industries, completely different backgrounds, and they have no clue. You know, they don't really, they need a lot of training in terms of what do they need to do every day. You know, I think we're kind of unique, you know, both just from a philosophy standpoint, but that also is somewhat, you know, out of necessity, because at the end of the day, I'm not sure how many people, grow up saying that they want to, do, sort of temporary staffing as their business long term. And so, we end up bringing in a lot of people who have existing experience, either as, branch managers or regional managers from other, from competitors or things like that. And that, that helps us a lot. And also gives us a matter of perspective, that then, we set up different types of, the sort of areas for people to learn from each other, because at the end of the day, while we have a lot of operating experience and a lot of the people who work, at our corporate office here in South Carolina have, hands-on experience, running branches on the ground, it really, I think it's best to have people who are, experiencing it day to day, have people like Kevin helping other people and sort of collaborating together. And so we really try to sort of foster that environment and sort of give people all the sort of different ways to help themselves, that they, so that they can find what works for them.
So Kevin, you've been in the industry for quite some time. You sold businesses, merged with other businesses. How is the training? How have you maintained the continuity of training through all your leadership roles?
Kind of what, going back to what David was saying there, it really depends upon which, particular part that you're talking about there. I mean, there's so many different levels of training, and it's where, just talking about, the day-to-day business training on this industry, basic operations, best practices, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it really has evolved over time. There's a ton of documentation. One of the things that we tell people from the job, before we even bring them on board is, frankly, a lot of times someone will ask, well, what does the training look like? And frankly, there is more training available today than you will ever be able to take. And it's an ongoing, it's a process. It's not an event. It is something that is ongoing. There are training opportunities every single week. Some of those are at our level. Some of those are at the, franchise level. Some of those are operations-based, sales-based, you name it, it exists. And so I think from that business integration standpoint, though, acquiring a new entity, that's always the slippery slope. That's always the tricky one. And, I think David and I have probably had this conversation. You never necessarily know if you got a good deal or a bad deal until, a year or so down the road, when you really take a look at it and, what do I have today compared to what I bought? And, so we've learned a lot of things along the way about, integrating cultures. And, I think that first big one, that command center integration, that was a big one. I think there were a lot of lessons that came out of that. And then doing, both Snelling and Link simultaneously, virtually. I think it was within the same 30 days. Well, again, a lot of learning lessons there, but there were a lot that were brought through the table. And now it's just an ongoing environment of constant training. Whereas if you need it, it exists. It's just a matter of, putting that tool in front of the person. And it's, you really have to figure out how that person learns. It's, there are some people that, have to do. There are some people that have to read it. There are some people that have to view it. And frankly, we have training on, every one of those fronts. So it works to the individual. And then it's a matter of that, whether it's that regional manager, that branch manager, myself, or whoever that it might be that is working with that new person, creating their training path. You lay that out and make sure that they're getting it in the format that they need to learn in the best way possible.
Final two questions, one for each of you. Kevin, if you had the opportunity to rewind 5 years, what would you do differently You talked about learning. What would you do differently?
So that, that's an interesting one, because frankly, I had a lot of time to really think this through. Because even when I was in the corporate environment, I always had in the back of my head that I wanted to get back to that private ownership. Frankly, I always loved the franchising side of things because it laid out a framework. You have the model, all that you have to do is execute it. So, to me, this was the perfect marriage. It was, just figuring out, how do we make that happen in the, easiest way possible. Thinking back, was it, what was it, the best of ideas to, take the whole swath that I did? I don't know. At the end of the day, no regrets on any of that, because it's all worked out, and it's created a ton of opportunity for a lot of people that have wanted it. And so I don't really have any, necessarily, oh, geez, I would have done this differently. I wish I would have known this ahead of time. My mind doesn't necessarily work that way. It's, I don't know. I think I had that beat out of me back in the 90s, just trying to figure this business out. And then, moving forward, you kind of accept things the way that they are and what's thrown at you, and you adapt, you overcome, and you figure out, and you move forward. And
you can't fix yesterday.
You're not going to please everyone. You're not going to be happy with every outcome. You're not, that's just life. So, I don't know. It's been a great opportunity for me. It's been a great experience for me all the way around.
So, David, just from my short relationship with HQ and everything that's transpired within your responsibility as a business development, mergers and acquisitions, it's been lightning speed, kind of like technology today. Normally I ask about 5 years, but in your world, it's 5 years is an eternity. What's your vision for HQ for over the next 3 years?
I mean, I think there's a lot of things, there are always a lot of opportunities. Clearly the last couple of years have been somewhat tumultuous. And so we've had, a lot of ups and downs and all that kind of good stuff. Which, frankly, in my area, that makes life a little harder, because if you're selling a business, you're looking for, hey, things were great a year ago, and things are just around the corner are going to be great again. And so I want to have, sort of this, and when, on this side, where you're buying things, saying, I understand things might be good, but right now they're not good. So how do we do that? So I think, I would like to see a little bit more stability in the market. I think that would help sort of everybody, both on, us for buying and companies, and then, for the sellers as well, because, everybody wants to make sure that they're doing the right thing. And, the more uncertainty there is, sort of external factors that are making it uncertain for everybody, that introduces a lot of, doubt, and second guessing and other things. But I mean, I think we're going to continue to do what we've been doing. I mean, at the end of the day, in terms of acquisitions, we're very opportunistic. And so, we don't necessarily have a set goal of, hey, we want to acquire this many companies, or this much revenue, or whatever it is. It's really, what's a good deal? What's going to fit well with us? Where are things going to fit with our existing franchisees? Where are there potential holes that we could fill in our, sort of our geographic territories, all that kind of stuff. And so, I'm hopeful, and I think that there's the potential for a lot of great things to happen over the next couple of years. And I think we'll just continue to grow, and maybe we'll have the opportunity to expand into some of those other verticals like security guards and janitorial, et cetera, that I was talking about earlier.
I love that. Gentlemen, I thank you very, very much for coming on board today. You've educated me in a whole different aspect of what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, I applaud you both very much for where you're going and where you've been. And again, thank you for attending and being a part of this podcast.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it, Vince. Thank you.